Welcome back in live to another episode of Rock Boys Football. It was a crazy rivalry Saturday. Our Michigan Wolverines got it done finally after 8 years in one of the more electric games we've seen in a really long time. Very exciting game. And we're coming to you here, and we're going to break down the Big Ten championship game where we'll face the Iowa Hawkeyes in Indianapolis. Dill, I'm going to kick it over to you. What are your general thoughts about this game, the matchup that the Michigan Wolverines have? What are you thinking?
So just to start off, I think Michigan has generally been pretty good against the lower tier teams throughout Harbaugh's whole time. It's generally been beating the good Wisconsin teams or the good Iowa State team or Ohio State teams and good Michigan State teams. So I'm looking at this Iowa team. I think in some sense, Michigan's lucky to be playing them versus Nebraska or Wisconsin, who I think would be a much tougher matchup. I just think when you're a team like Iowa, you're so one-dimensional with a running back who's not a star on the level of your Jonathan Taylor type Wisconsin premier running backs. I think that's not a good recipe for Iowa to challenge this defense Michigan has.
Yeah, I heard this analogy that Michigan is just a way better Iowa. I don't know if I agree with it totally, but
False.
everything Iowa does, Michigan just does at a higher level. Maybe barring turnovers and special teams, although special teams is pretty darn close too. As in terms of running the football, Iowa does it well. That's always been what they've done under Kirk Ferentz. Michigan has just done it better. There's not a team that runs the ball better than them. I think what hurts Iowa and what I really like about this Michigan team and their matchup is Iowa's very one-dimensional. If they don't run the ball effectively, they're not scoring. I mean, you look at the first half of the Nebraska game, they couldn't run the ball, and that hurt them very, very bad. They got the run going.
I don't think it's like you. I think we've seen Michigan teams lose to one-dimensional running teams. I think Michigan State kind of comes to mind at times in the past, and Wisconsin with Jonathan Taylor certainly does. So it's not like Michigan. I think the team's way different this year, a different style of ball, but I think it's the fact that they're so bad at quarterback, and they tried Padilla. He came in, gave him one good drive, and then was brutal. And Petras he just can't move the ball down the field with any sort of consistency in terms of making any sort of big plays. So they need to basically be perfect for 15 play drives to ever score a touchdown. And I just don't think they have the talent or the kind of consistency at any point throughout their team to do that against Michigan, whose defense is really, really playing well since Michigan State.
I mean, from a pure matchup stance, this is definitely not one of the better offensive lines Iowa has had. It gets graded out well in like PFF. You'll see it gets graded out well because Tyler Linderbaum's literally grading at like a 96 level, but like their tackles are not very good.
No.
And what you said, I mean, they've just struggled to throw the football, and it's very hard to be a one-dimensional team where if you can't throw, it's kind of easy to put some guys in the box and stop the run. And if Iowa gets into those third and long spots, like they're just not gonna. I don't see them converting at a consistent basis. That we saw OSU convert a decent amount on us. And so I like this matchup. As a Michigan fan, I was very much rooting for Minnesota to take down Wisconsin because I think this Iowa Hawkeyes team is a much better matchup and just not as good of a team.
And I mean, I don't think this is like the best front Iowa's ever had. I think they're like a little lighter on defensive line. Their linebackers are what they generally are, like really solid.
They got some
not like NFL players.
Very good. He's a
but they don't have that defense like the Goodsons or not Goodson, but number 57 for them last year, and some of those other pro caliber defensive linemen. I just don't see them like that. Van Faulkner, he can play, nothing against him, but I don't see him as kind of what the the level of guys they've had in the past at defensive line that's made them a really good defense. I think they've done a good job taking the ball away, but that's kind of all they've really done.
I mean, they've done a tremendous job getting interceptions. From the games I've watched, like Maryland comes to mind. What the problem is Cade McNamara is probably one of the best quarterbacks at taking care of the football. We saw him have that one pick against Ohio State on Saturday, but that's been an outlier. He's done a very good job of taking care of the ball and really not putting the ball in danger. Obviously, our running backs have phenomenal ball security. So I think it's overall a very good matchup. I think we're going to be able to match up with them on the outside and kind of put them in a little bit of conflict. I would like to see Michigan get to some of those AJ Henning sweeps, swings, get Blake Corum to the perimeter, because this team it's a tough team. It's a traditional Iowa team. These Iowa teams are the same every year. They're going to be good in the trenches, although I don't think they're as good as they have been. And if we can get to, Donovan Edwards again too. So if we can get to the perimeter, use our speed and our athleticism, it's going to be, we should take care of business. The one thing I'll add is we just can't have a letdown game. I mean, we had the biggest win in program history since we've been alive. As a Michigan fan myself, I can't remember a bigger win.
No, not even close.
And so, our lifetime. Yes, I'm happy and that you got to celebrate, but you got to take care of business in 7 more days. And we're the better team. 9 times out of 10, we win this football game. We just can't let it be that one time. And part of that is just staying focused throughout the week and getting going.
Yeah, and then just to flip over, I think the big issue is, I think what you nailed it, is Iowa doesn't have tackles who can even play in the league with Ojabo and Hutch, and those two are turning it up. I think Ojabo is getting a little better in the run, which was his, if you want to say he had a kryptonite, it was a little bit of that. But barring a couple plays, I think he was really solid against Ohio State, against really far better tackles than what Iowa's going to bring him. So yeah, I really see us being able to clamp them down. The wideouts for Iowa aren't going to be able to challenge the corners.
I think that's another to add on. That was kind of one of the notes I had in my notes, is they don't have a wide receiver core. Like their receiving guys go through Sam Laporta. And that's about it. There's no like alpha wide receiver. You have Charlie Jones who can try to get in space. And I think that Nico Reganey kid has been kind of a little bit of a producer, but there's no like alpha receiver. Like Ohio State had 3 of them where it's like, okay, 3rd and 7, we need somebody to win. So we can take Sam Laporta out. I really like our chances, and I wouldn't be surprised if we get to a little bit more man coverage here, because I think we just match up with them. I don't think they can beat us one-on-one. We're not worried about Spencer Petras running the football, scrambling, and so I think we'll see a decent amount of man coverage, and we're just going to take care of them athletically. And, what do you? Yeah. We've done a lot of talk on our defense versus their offense. We have a lot of advantages. One being at the edge position against their weak tackles. Another being they just don't really have any athletes on the outside. As long as we stop Tyler Goodson, which our linebackers have mostly been pretty solid. Tyler Goodson isn't a home run hitter. Averages 4.6 a carries. Kenneth Walker kind of burned us on some explosives. What do you? Yeah,
but that was it. It was only a few big plays that basically sullied the whole game.
And Tyler Goodson isn't that kind of guy. He's more of a cloud of dust dude. What do you see? What do you see being our advantage on the offense side of the ball?
I think the one thing that yesterday showed us is Michigan can play really well on the perimeter, in addition to playing like a heavy bully ball inside. It's like when we got Corum to the edge, we got Henning to the edge, we got Donovan Edwards. Like we got those guys who can play on the edge at a really high level. And our tight ends, both of them, Schoonmaker and Eric All, can block really well. And our wide receivers are just willing participants. So it's like, I think what we can do is get them to the edge where they're probably more vulnerable than they are maybe up the middle, because their linebackers do play probably as good, or that's where they play. They like to play in the box and deal with it there. but I think Michigan can take you both ways. I think they can get you on the edge. I think they can get you inside. I think we're going to have a pretty good matchup with the interior too. I don't see the defensive tackle play from Iowa like particularly disruptive. So I just think I think Michigan, what they're bringing is a more multi-dimensional offense than they've had in the past where, okay, we've either tried to be only play on the edge or only play up the middle. I think this year with the level of that our offensive line is playing at, along with having some playmakers who are emerging and can play really well in space, I think is a dangerous combo for Iowa.
Yeah. I think one more thing,
we don't need to throw the ball downfield that much, which is what Iowa's kind of wants you to do is play that cover 2 zone, throw the ball down the field and get their turnovers. That's kind of what they've been relying on.
Yeah. And as long as Cade, I think one more thing I'll add before we kind of get to our betting leans is the option worked really well for Nebraska, at least in the first half. And it was kind of weird because they just kind of went away from it in the second half. It was their best play. And they did it in some creative ways. I think at one point they handed it off to the running back and then had a wide receiver like run out with them. I wonder if we can get something like that going with JJ. Again, just stress the eyes and stress the athleticism of these backers. JJ's is you can see getting more comfortable doing it. At one point, they had him pull it and throw it downfield, which is one of the first times we've seen him do that. And so I wonder if this is a week for JJ to kind of step up in that round.
It is a good book because that was really all that. I mean, once Nebraska went away from their option and they started to press a little bit when things turned against them. Yeah, they did really struggle, but they could.
Iowa can't beat us straight up on offense and defense. It's don't turn the ball over. Don't give up an explosive on special teams, and Michigan should be fine.
And I think you're getting just looking at the line, it's like 10.5 is
so go towards the line. So the line currently Michigan's favorite at 10.5, over under sitting at 43.5. What are your leans there?
Oh, I hate that. That's not the type of spreads I like doing.
Well, for our viewers, if you were picking, where are you leaning?
I mean, I'm Michigan, of course, but that's like A, it's biased, and B, I don't. I think the more interesting play is the over/under. Like, if I was going to make anything on this, I think Michigan might score 30 points, quite frankly. So
I don't know about that.
If you think you can get 2 touchdowns out of Iowa, I think you might even play for the over.
I don't see Iowa scoring over 14 points. I see Michigan covering, and it's more due to the fact that I think Iowa's offense is just not going to be able to stay on the field very much. And I think Michigan is just – they're cooking on offense. I don't think they didn't punt once in the second half of that Ohio State game.
No.
And so my leans would be Michigan to cover the 10.5. I'd be comfortable at really betting up to 2 touchdowns. I think Michigan is the much better team, and the way Iowa can keep themselves in it is turnovers and special teams. I don't think they're better than us on offense or defense. And I probably lean over. I think that's a little bit of a low over. I don't think they're valuing Michigan's explosive offense. Yes, we like to run the ball, but we also have a lot of explosives in the run game, and we will throw it over the top when you bring up those safeties. We did it a couple times. Cade is a very accurate thrower downfield, and he will hit those throws. And so that's kind of my lean. Michigan to cover 10.5, and I'm hitting the over 43.5. But I worry about Iowa scoring enough points.
That is the thing with the over is I think Michigan will get around 30. It's hard to say if Iowa, because the way our defense is playing ever since Michigan State again, it's like, and especially the way Iowa's going to want to play is not going to be.
Yeah.
I don't think an effective matchup. I think what you kind of can do a little bit with Michigan is spread them out, and I think Maryland's like spread at times gave them a little bit of trouble, and obviously still handled them. But when Ohio State was spreading us out and throwing, that was pretty much all they could muster up. They couldn't really run the ball. they could hit some athletic wideouts on quick passes. That was probably the only thing that consistently worked for them in
And
a
Aiden
couple of
O'Connell,
big plays.
Aiden O'Connell got it going against Iowa. They only scored 7, and Aiden O'Connell threw for almost 400.
Yeah.
He threw 4 picks that game. So yeah, that'll do it for us there. I think we both, and I think like most of the public sees it. Michigan's the better football team. They're the more confident football team. Iowa kind of limped into the Big Ten championships. They're not. I don't know how to phrase it, but I don't think I was going to need help. I was going to need Michigan to play some bad football to win this game. We're both feeling pretty confident. It's a good matchup as we liked. So we'll be back more talking about it on Twitter, but those are kind of some of our initial thoughts as Michigan rolls into Indy, looking like one of the best teams in the country. Thanks for hanging out with us. Like and subscribe as usual. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.